Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons. I want to talk about types of Dungeons & Dragons participants. So let's get into this. So what are some types of Dungeons & Dragons participants? And today we're going to talk about the Boppo, which is someone who participates in Dungeons & Dragons by carrying its name, by doing name recognition for it in a very unusual way. So this is 2023, and we had a hugely important moment in Dungeons and Dragons history, and that moment was the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves movie, and this brought literally millions of people into contact with Dungeons and Dragons that do not do Dungeons and Dragons. They don't run it, they don't play it, they don't read, they don't run it, they don't experience it, they don't read it, they don't own it, they don't collect it. They just don't do Dungeons and Dragons, right? And where I saw this the most were reviewers. So I watched no less than 25, maybe 50 reviews for Dungeons and Dragons. And very, very often people would be like, so this is connected to Dungeons and Dragons, which is a board game. I heard it no less than 10 times. People were like, oh, the Dungeons and Dragons is a board game. And they just don't know any better. They literally think Dungeons and Dragons is a board game. Now, how do I consider people who don't run or experience Dungeons and Dragons as participants? Well, name recognition is massively important, especially in America. And nothing is more valuable in America than name recognition. It's not in America, it's not bad if people think poorly of you. It's bad if people don't think of you. That's the problem, right? And when they say Dungeons & Dragons is a board game, they're saying, I know Dungeons & Dragons. I know the name. I just don't know what it is. Now, guess what? That's totally okay if you don't know what Dungeons & Dragons is. Because people who've been playing Dungeons & Dragons for 48 years don't know what Dungeons & Dragons is, right? Like, most people don't know what Dungeons & Dragons actually is. Of course, it's not a board game. But who can blame these people? The people who are deepest into Dungeons & Dragons don't even have any idea what Dungeons & Dragons is. I actually think there are Dungeons & Dragons designers that don't actually know what Dungeons & Dragons actually is. So it's totally okay that they confuse it and think it's a board game. It's just, it's part of it. So that's totally okay, but these people are participating in Dungeons & Dragons by massively increasing its name recognition. And when people ask them what it is, they tell them. They're like, oh, it's a board game. They're wrong. But it's important that they recognize it, right? And so I consider Boppos, people who think Dungeons & Dragons is a board game, as a significant D&D participants, and it's not a small number. I think there could be like 30 or 40 million people who know the name Dungeons & Dragons and think it's a board game. Just where we're at. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing and have a wonderful millennium.